They never understood why your silence hit harder than their loudest opinions. While others rehearsed their lines in the mirror of societal approval, you walked in with truth that didn't need choreography. You don't offer comfort laced in delusion. You serve clarity, rare, potent, and undiluted. And now that inner switch is flipping. That fearless part of you that once whispered warnings to close friends is stepping into the spotlight. Not to perform, but to reveal. People are done with fairy dust and fables. They're aching for someone who doesn't flinch when the truth gets ugly, someone who can look love in the eye and name what others only hint at. Not to shame, but to set free. You've got a gift for saying what needs to be said without using the blade. It's not about being cruel. It's about being clean. And that energy? It's starting to ripple. Somewhere, someone just scrolled past a post and felt your frequency. And it stopped them cold, because it felt like a mirror. Keep speaking. They've been waiting for you. Something ancient and undeniable is stirring in your bones. Not a call to impress, but a call to disrupt. While others scramble for attention with shiny cliches and empty affirmations, a deeper voice is emerging from within you, one that doesn't chase applause but leaves impact. You were never interested in saying what sounds nice. You've been crafted to speak what pierces. The shift you're feeling isn't confusion, it's alignment. You're not preparing to teach love. You're preparing to remind people of the love they forgot they deserved. This isn't about wearing a title or becoming a brand. It's about embodying a frequency that rattles illusions. You don't preach from a pedestal. You sit with the chaos, feel the distortions, and alchemize clarity in places that have only known confusion. You're stepping into a role that doesn't need credentials, only courage. Because the gift you carry doesn't shout over others. It silences rooms with truth that lands like a soul mirror. And when that mirror is held up, people don't just see love differently, they see themselves differently. There's a wildfire of contradiction burning through the digital world, and it's exposing every false flame. You're the one who doesn't fall for performance. You catch the silence between the sentences. You sense the hunger behind the smile. While others are lost in rehearsed scripts about timing and energy, you're tuned into what isn't being said. That radar of yours isn't learned, it's embedded. And it's starting to pulse with a frequency that can't be ignored much longer. You didn't study manipulation to dismantle it, you felt it in your own life and vowed never to become it. That's why your insight cuts so deep. Not because it's perfect, but because it's lived. Your intuition isn't a trick. It's a compass that's been tested in storms most wouldn't survive. And now, as the world spins in its chaos of healing and alignment wrapped in illusion, you're becoming the still point. The truth in the noise, the knowing in the confusion, the one who doesn't just say what love is, but reminds people what love is not. It's not paranoia. It's pattern recognition wrapped in spiritual intelligence. There are those who approach with smiles carved from strategy, not sincerity. They appear when the timing feels poetic, when the heart is still raw from healing, and they arrive not by accident, but by calculation. They don't stumble into your space. They aim for it. They've learned how to mimic depth, how to mirror wounds, how to craft a persona that feels like medicine, but functions like extraction. It's not the words they say that's dangerous. It's the intentions they bury beneath them. The more your purpose sharpens, the more you notice how some connections arrive wearing masks of alignment, but carry the weight of interference. These aren't allies. These are opportunists cloaked in shared language. They quote your values back to you, echo your visions, mimic your voice, not to build with you but to feed off what you're building. Influence becomes bait. Vulnerability becomes a map. And if you're not alert, their admiration can feel like belonging. But it's not. This isn't about closing your heart. It's about training your discernment to hear beyond tone and tempo. It's about realizing that not everyone drawn to your evolution is meant to witness it up close. Some come to collect what they didn't earn. Some come to interrupt the broadcast. The lesson isn't to isolate, it's to insulate. To guard the inner sanctuary while still letting the right ones in. Growth doesn't mean being open to everything. It means being aligned with what actually honors your becoming. People will study your cracks so they can shapeshift into a remedy. They'll learn your rhythm so they can dance close without ever meaning to stay. But your soul has learned the difference between intimacy and infiltration. That's why, no matter how smooth they speak or how synchronized they move, your inner knowing feels the static. And that feeling? That's not fear. That's truth doing its job. It's not that truth makes people uncomfortable, it's that your truth unearths what they buried on purpose. While some build their understanding of love on repetition and rehearsed advice, yours comes from collision. You're the kind of presence that disrupts illusions people desperately want to protect. You don't just speak the unspeakable, you point to what's hiding in plain sight and name it with such precision that people have no choice but to feel it. You're not here to entertain pretty lies. You're here to shatter the stage they perform on. Recognition isn't just a talent, it's the atmosphere you carry. People walk into your space thinking they're misunderstood lovers, only to realize they've been actors in a show that's run too long. You see the difference between connection and control without needing dramatic proof. The performance might be polished, the chemistry staged like a commercial, but something in you just knows. You're not scanning for red flags. You're sensing imbalance in the air and calling it out before it ever finds a microphone. And what you carry doesn't stop with perception, it passes on. You're equipping others with the same lens, showing them that confusion isn't a lack of love, it's a signal. That if something keeps needing defense or explanation, it's probably not peace. You're showing people how to believe what they feel instead of gaslighting themselves into silence. Not through lectures, but by revealing what happens when discernment becomes second nature instead of a desperate scramble. None of this came from textbooks. It came from living it. That's why you don't just notice patterns, you read them. Every encounter that left your chest heavy and your gut twisted was actually shaping your gift. Now, all those gut-level alerts, all those moments when your spirit said this isn't real, are forming the blueprint for what you're about to give the world. Not answers but sight. Not formulas but freedom. There's a quiet revolt unfolding inside you, and it's beautiful. The reflex to bend, to soften, to question what you knew in your bones just to keep others comfortable. It's dissolving. What's taking its place isn't harshness, it's clarity. A clarity that no longer seeks permission to exist fully. You're not stepping into a version of yourself that pushes others away. You're returning to the self that no longer needs to be approved to be powerful. The softness is still there, but it's surrounded now by something ancient, something steady, a kind of strength that doesn't ask twice. It's becoming clearer by the day who benefited from your uncertainty. Not because you were weak, but because your compassion was easy to weaponize. And now, as your edges become defined and your voice sharpens with conviction, those who relied on your silence are beginning to panic. The patterns are returning, not as tests but as proof. Proof that you've outgrown the cycle. They'll try again with their old formulas: guilt, passive control, fear of disconnection. But those doors no longer lead to you. What's shifting now isn't just about personal power, it's about legacy. You're no longer in the habit of watering down truth to protect fragile egos. You understand now that shielding others from their own reflections keeps everyone small. This new presence you're embodying isn't arrogance, it's integrity. And those who can't handle your growth were never aligned with your actual self, just the version they could manage. The most powerful thing you're doing isn't drawing lines, it's letting go of the need to explain why they're necessary. What's rising in you is clean and untamed and final. You're no longer afraid to be misunderstood by people who only knew how to love a watered-down version of your light. They're not reacting to the real you, they're reacting to the loss of control. And that's your confirmation. Keep building from this frequency. This is you, without edits, without filters, without apology. What used to confuse you now feels obvious. Emotional manipulation, once dressed as concern or closeness, now stands naked in your presence. The shift didn't happen overnight, it came from the weight of every time you silenced yourself to protect someone else's comfort. But those days are done. Now, when someone twists your honesty into blame, you don't flinch. You recognize it for what it is, a last attempt to keep power in a space that no longer belongs to them. And the more you root into your center, the faster those games collapse under their own emptiness. There's a rhythm to truth and you've learned how to move in it. Every time someone attempted to punish your boundaries, thinking silence could be bought with guilt, the very force they used ricocheted. Not by chance but by law. You're walking in alignment now, not a performance of confidence but the real thing. and that alignment has become your protection. The backlash they planned for you has turned into the lesson they didn't expect. That's what happens when energy speaks louder than explanation. As your presence becomes more grounded, a quiet sorting begins. Some will adjust, not because they have to, but because your new vibration invites them to grow. Others will expose themselves the moment they realize the version of you they controlled is no longer available. The shift won't always be loud. Sometimes it'll be a look, a pause, a withdrawal of access. And that's all you'll need to know. The people who once counted on your compassion to keep their patterns alive won't know what to do when compassion no longer means compliance. You're not becoming colder. You're becoming clear. And that clarity burns through every illusion people built around you. Those who once demanded your silence now call your truth too much. But truth is never the problem. Only the structures that depend on lies fear its arrival. You don't need to defend your evolution. Just keep showing up as the version of yourself that no longer begs to be understood. The ones meant for you will recognize the upgrade. The rest were never truly listening, just managing access. And now that access has expired. Somewhere, someone is bracing themselves for the old version of you, the one who over-explained, who got tangled in emotional debates, who gave away too much just to keep the peace. But that version dissolved in silence, long before they even noticed you were changing. What exists now is a presence that doesn't need to shout, defend, or react. The strength you carry isn't aggressive, it's immovable. And that alone is enough to shake the foundation of any performance rooted in illusion. They've been plotting a return. Not because they've grown, but because they think they've found the right strategy to slip back into your orbit. What they don't realize is that you're not orbiting anymore. You're grounded. They might come dressed in nostalgia, holding rehearsed lines and repackaged emotions, hoping to stir something familiar. But all they'll find is someone who listens without leaning, who observes without absorbing, who nods without negotiating their piece. The energy they once manipulated now reflects back at them like a glass wall. No entry, no engagement, no invitation. Their words will sound the same, but your response won't. Because you're no longer offering emotional currency for shallow transactions. You're not withholding love, you're protecting alignment. And the moment they sense that they can't pull you into the past, they'll begin revealing the truth of their intentions. Not because you asked, but because your calm exposes what performance cannot sustain. And when that moment arrives, you won't need validation, closure, or applause. The shift will speak for itself. You'll notice how little effort it takes to hold your center, how loud silence becomes when it's backed by inner knowing. This isn't about revenge. This is about evolution. You're not meeting them where they are. You're standing where you belong, and watching everything false fall away, unable to survive in your atmosphere. There's a new rhythm guiding how you move through connection. You're no longer stretching yourself to fit where you've outgrown. You've stopped auditioning for spaces that couldn't receive you. What's forming now is magnetic, aligned, mature relationships that don't punish your depth. The more you embody who you really are, the more space is created around you, not as loss but as preparation. Those who once demanded a diluted version of your presence are quietly stepping back, and that vacuum? It's being filled with souls who see you clearly and offer mutual energy without distortion. There's a reorganization happening inside your creative life too, and it's tied to the clarity you've earned. The same voice that risked discomfort to speak with integrity is unlocking pathways that are both expressive and financially supportive. You're beginning to understand that being polarizing isn't a threat, it's a filter. It's how aligned opportunities find you faster. The perspectives you once questioned for being too much are now opening doors you didn't even know existed. You're not chasing influence, you're embodying truth. And that embodiment is converting into resources, without any compromise. Recently, you may have taken a leap, a bold investment in your own expansion. It might have felt risky, even foolish at first. But the discomfort that followed wasn't a warning, it was growth adjusting your internal settings. You're learning to trust that real progress often feels unfamiliar. That giving yourself permission to invest in your voice, your healing, your tools, even when it stretches you, is the very posture that invites sustainable return. Playing it safe never built legacy. You're not leaking money, you're declaring readiness. And that declaration is about to echo louder than scarcity ever did. What's ending is your old relationship with survival. What's beginning is your conscious partnership with overflow. You're not going to have to convince, persuade, or perform for support. You'll simply exist in alignment, and those who need what you carry will find you. The cycle of overgiving in silence is closing. You've given without keeping score. You've poured into others while quietly carrying your own lack. That cycle is ending not out of revenge, but out of divine reciprocity. The seeds you planted in hidden seasons are returning now, not as handouts but as harvest. Because truth pays you back. Always. It's becoming impossible to hide the shift that's happening within you. What used to feel like too much is now being revealed as your greatest contribution. The light you carry isn't meant to be a spotlight, it's a mirror. It allows people to see themselves with new eyes, beyond the layers they've built to survive. What you ignite in others isn't superficial charm, it's remembrance. And because of that, the spaces you enter will feel different. People will walk away from your presence feeling like they met themselves again for the first time. You're beginning to understand that your boldness is not a flaw to tame but a current to ride. The very traits you were once encouraged to dim are becoming the engine of your influence. While others dilute themselves to appeal to the masses, your gift is becoming sharper, more defined, and impossible to replicate. You're not offering generic inspiration. You're offering precise transformation. The kind that interrupts comfort and invites breakthrough. That specificity is what makes your presence valuable, and soon that value will translate across every channel of your life, especially where money and meaning meet. You may have made choices recently that felt risky, perhaps spending where it felt unwise or choosing yourself in ways that weren't applauded. But those decisions weren't reckless. They were declarations. Not everything you invest in returns immediately, but what you're building now is rooted in long-term alignment. And that alignment is starting to create ripple effects across areas you haven't even focused on. Income won't be extracted by force or gimmick anymore. It'll flow because what you offer resonates on a level that doesn't require convincing. Something rare is unfolding beneath the surface of your relationship. The pressure to perform is melting away, revealing a softness that had long been buried under responsibility. You're beginning to see not just the person in front of you, but the untouched, unguarded version of them that still wants to be chosen with fresh eyes. You're bringing levity back into spaces that used to feel transactional. And this time, it isn't about escaping adulthood, it's about inviting curiosity back into connection. You're not trying to fix your bond. You're remembering how to feel inside of it. That remembrance is what's restoring the closeness. You're also realizing that influence doesn't come from perfection. It comes from transparency. People trust you not because you've mastered life, but because you've stopped pretending to. Your way of leading is rooted in presence, not pressure. You give others permission to be real, not by offering perfect advice but by admitting you're learning too. That kind of honesty has become your quiet authority. It's not about answers anymore. It's about building containers where questions are allowed to live without shame. This shift is beginning to reflect in how others behave around you. People soften. They speak differently. They feel more seen, not because you pry but because you hold space without trying to steer. You're not here to rescue people. You're here to reflect back their power in moments when they forget. And in doing that, you're becoming a sanctuary for those learning to recognize the parts of themselves they've kept hidden. That recognition is the real transformation. Not what you teach, but what you help them remember. You're also stepping into a new kind of boundary work that's not about pushing people away, but about loving them without losing yourself. You're learning to stay grounded in your own truth while holding space for someone else's. And that's a rare art. You no longer feel the need to overfunction in relationships just to feel useful. You don't enter people's chaos like it's yours to fix. You stand beside them, solid, steady, and free, proving that care doesn't mean control and closeness doesn't require collapse. That lesson alone will change everything. Not just for you, but for everyone who dares to grow beside you. There's a quiet reunion taking place within you, not dramatic or loud, but steady and real. The part of you that once lit up at small curiosities, that danced without shame, that asked questions without fear of being wrong, it's returning. But this time it's not returning to be tamed, it's being welcomed. What's happening now isn't regression, it's reclamation. You're no longer silencing the playful instincts to appear in control. Instead, you're learning to protect those sparks of life, letting them fuel your expression in ways that feel alive and deeply grounded. Your relationship with vitality is evolving too. You're beginning to sense the disconnect between what's offered and what's nourishing. There's a growing awareness inside you, a knowing that fatigue isn't just a matter of sleep, and clarity isn't just about mindset. You're realizing that how we feel in our bodies is not disconnected from how we exist in the world. The more you pay attention, the more obvious it becomes. The very systems that dull emotional truth also benefit from our physical depletion. That realization is becoming part of your purpose. It's no longer enough for things to look healthy or be labeled as normal. You're seeing through the scripts, the slogans, the pretty packaging that masks what's harmful. You've become fluent in subtle signals. The shift in mood after a meal, the heaviness after using a product, the fog that rolls in uninvited. You're no longer gaslighting your own body with denial. Every signal it sends, every whisper of resistance, is a message you're finally listening to. And in listening, you're learning how deeply we've normalized disconnection. This isn't about becoming extreme. It's about becoming honest. The discomfort you used to blame on yourself now reveals itself as something external, something engineered to keep you small, numb, and distracted. You're shedding those weights. And as you do, you're making room not only for personal freedom, but for a kind of clarity that others feel just by being near you. That clarity is contagious. It makes people question what they've accepted. It makes them curious about what else could be possible, not because you told them, but because you embodied it first. The shift happening inside your body isn't random. It's the result of a deeper awareness waking up, a refusal to normalize feeling drained, numb, or foggy. What you used to brush off as just how things are now feels suspicious. That sensitivity is intelligence, not weakness. You're beginning to connect the patterns no one taught you to look for, and in doing so, you're reclaiming a type of clarity that can't be sold or labeled. You're not just changing what you consume. You're changing what you tolerate. The morning rituals you once relied on out of habit are evolving into acts of precision and reverence. That quick fix you used to reach for now feels misaligned. You've realized it's not about cutting everything out, it's about refining what you allow in. You're feeling the difference between temporary stimulation and sustainable vitality. And as your energy begins to stabilize, your choices feel less like restrictions and more like self-respect. You're no longer at war with your body. You're finally listening to its language, and that language is calling for quality. There's a new kind of discernment forming in your life, one that stretches far beyond emotional boundaries or personal relationships. You've started looking at every part of your existence through the same lens you once reserved only for people. And now it's clear, what you let into your body, your mind, and your space all speaks directly to your self-worth. This isn't about elitism or obsession. It's about refusing to normalize feeling depleted. You're done confusing disconnection for discipline and convenience for nourishment. Every choice you make now is part of a larger alignment that echoes into everything you touch. You're not compartmentalizing anymore. All the different pieces of your growth, your voice, your leadership, your sensitivity to energy, your evolving relationship with food and wellness, they're finally integrating. You're not just improving isolated habits. You're becoming a whole system that runs on clarity. This isn't about self-improvement for image's sake. This is about the natural authority that emerges when someone fully trusts themselves. You've moved beyond proving. You've stepped into stewarding of your energy, your purpose, your impact. You've stopped apologizing for being direct. You've stopped editing your instincts to match the comfort zones of others. And now the people around you are revealing who they've always been. Some matching your rise, some shrinking in resistance. But you're not bending anymore. You're no longer interested in digesting the discomfort of others just to avoid being seen as too much. The frequency you walk in now, it clears rooms not meant for you and calls in those who are. That's not conflict. That's clarity doing its job.